Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Urban Legends video. I thought I would do one more video associated with a haunted doll of sorts because of the very good reception, warm reception that was given with my last video when I talked about Robert the Doll. I came across information for this particular urban legend, this new one here, when I was doing the research on Robert the Doll, and initially I was going to save it for something else down the road, but again, considering the warm reception that everybody gave with Robert the Doll, I thought I would give it to everybody here as a treat. So again, as big thank you to everybody for your continued support. I now present this other urban legend called Pupa the Doll. I hope I'm saying that right, but at least that's how it's spelled, Pupa the Doll. And that way, again, it's a big thank you to everybody for watching my videos and for your continued support. By the way, this will be the last video that I'll do on haunted type dolls for a while, because even this stuff, creeps me out. This is the kind of stuff where you can only take so much, even if you do this during the daytime. Reading some of the stuff that I came across, it's freaky. I don't know what it is about dolls, but not just dolls by themselves, normal looking dolls, nothing associated in types of any kind of curse or any kind of urban legends. Just regular dolls themselves are freaky, let alone something involving haunted or something involving cursed themes. That's a whole other level. So I'm going to be stopping these for a while, and if something else comes across that absolutely merits talking about it, then I'll do it then. So in any case, Pupa the Doll is much like Robert the Doll. They have similarities, but there are some differences involved between the two of them. Pupa the Doll was actually given to a child back in the 1920s, and you'll see a picture of Pupa the Doll here. The big difference between Pupa the Doll and Robert the Doll is that Pupa the Doll seems to be in a far better condition than Robert was, especially considering the timeline. Again, this was given to a child in the 20s, in the 1920s, so it's almost 100 years from this time period, and yet it's still in somewhat good condition. Not an excellent condition, of course, but it's still in a far more manageable condition that Robert the Doll was on there. Unfortunately, very little information is given at the beginning origins of this doll, like even the name of the child, who that was. There is little information, no information basically on this. Even the time period that's been quoted is somewhere in the 1920s, but no exact time period on there. But we do know that Pupa the Doll was given to this child as a present, and then you'll see a picture of the child actually here. Now, you'll see some blatant similarities between the doll and the child. What's interesting to note is that this is not by accident. Apparently at that time, whenever gifts were being given to children, and in this case, this time period in the 1920s, and the location of this happening was in Italy, it was very popular at that time and at that location for the gifts of dolls to bear likeness to the child that they were being given to. So in other words, if the child was a girl, then a doll was made that looked almost like the girl itself. If the child was a boy, then another doll was made that looked like the boy itself, and so on. So with regards to this particular image, you'll notice that the girl on the left side, your left side, my left side, she bears a strong likeness to the doll. That is an actual picture, by the way, of the doll itself when it first came out, and you'll see that it was in pristine condition then, and it had an uncanny resemblance again to the child. In fact, some of the stories say, some do, some don't, so again, you have to take a little bit of grain of truth with this, but some of the stories say that it was also popular for the hair of the doll to be made from hair of the child as well. So it kind of explains why the child may have had a shorter crop of hair there in that photo, and that's because part of the hair within the doll itself was made by the child's hair too. It could have been that it wasn't, and this is all just pure coincidence, and that was the style at the time to have the child having, let's say, shorter bob type hair. But if that's the case, that's truly her hair, then that's important to note because of what happens afterward on there. But the child loved the doll. It was love at first sight, and it actually spanned for a very, very long time on there. With regards to the doll itself, it's been described as follows. Pupa is about 46 inches tall, so she's not exactly too tiny. She's actually tall, not taller than most other dolls that are out there. And her head and her arms, the material that they're made out of, including her legs, are made of a material called felt on there. And so again, comparing it to what the condition is now, it's not too far off from what the Pupa doll looked like at the beginning when she was first made on there. So once the doll was given to the child, then the child held on to it and she cherished it for pretty much her entire life. At that time, the child lived in Italy, but eventually their family moved to the U.S. And when that happened, the child brought the doll and they traveled on their adventures there in the U.S. They eventually moved back to Italy, and then they were able to travel across Europe, and once again the final destination was the US. So as you can see, both the child and the doll, because the child always carried the doll with her at all times, you could see that there was a lot of moving around, and this doll saw as much geographic locations as the child was experiencing at that time. So there was definitely a bond that was being built between them on there. The interesting thing about this is because this bond was actually something that was happening on a whole other level. So if you believe in anything involving curses, if you believe in anything involving haunted items, the more time that this child was spending with the doll, then the more that this doll was having a hold or some kind of special bond with the child, so much so that apparently Pupa the doll was in fact becoming alive. So he heard the tales associated with Pupa the doll and some of the experiences that people had while she was with the child. The child was at a point where she would blatantly tell others that the doll itself was having a mind, quote unquote, a mind of its own. This she would actually tell stories where she would have conversations with Pupa the doll because Pupa was her best friend, and it was like having a conversation with somebody that was alive, like another child standing in front of her. But instead of it being a real person, it was the doll itself. And then others that have been with the child at that time, they too experienced circumstances very much and similar to what Robert the doll's experiences were, where people would visit over and they would hear noises, or people would come over and they would experience the doll being at a place where it shouldn't be. It's one of those deals where you start thinking to yourself, didn't I place the doll someplace earlier this morning, but why is it here? And then you kind of start what's what I'm looking for, you kind of start kind of like thinking to yourself, maybe I'm losing my mind, maybe I did have her someplace else really, and so that's why she's there now, but I could have sworn I had her placed her someplace else on there. And so this particular tale with the child and the doll, it lasted her entire life. This doll never left the child's arms, or in this case not her arms, but in this case her proximity. She stayed with her well into the older age that the child became, and then finally the child ended up dying sometime in 2005. So this would have made her into her 80s, sometimes maybe even into her 90s, and that's when the person died of old age with the doll still in her possession. But the story doesn't end there, because apparently the family that took over that location must have found the doll, again bearing similarities with Robert the doll, where the owner of Robert the doll died and the family that took over the house found the doll there. Very same thing happened here, except I didn't really come across any story associated with like another person, a young child, a young boy, a young girl. I didn't come across another situation where somebody else took over the doll, or the doll itself was calling that person. No, instead the family just found the doll and they kept it. But that's where some more strange occurrences happened. These are their tales with it. People have said that in this case, the doll, the way it was found, they decided to cherish, whoever that family was, decided to cherish the doll and place it in a glass case. This was actually the first time that the doll would have been placed in such a display, because previously, again, throughout who knows how many decades, a very long time, well plus 80 years or so, the doll was free and it was with that child all throughout its entire life. But now all of a sudden, and under this new family, it was placed inside a glass case, and the doll was not liking it. And this is what the family reported. They would state that when the doll was placed in this glass case, they would find that sometimes the glass case would steam up on its own. How freaky is that? It would steam up on its own. There would have been nothing to cause the glass to steam up. Nothing in terms of it being too hot inside the house, nothing in terms of somebody turning up the humidity, nothing like that. All that could be perceived is that the steam was coming from the doll itself, maybe out of anger. But that's not the only freaky part, because apparently once the steam reached the inside of the glass case and created of that foggy look that glasses create whenever there's enough humidity, then they would find handwriting inside the case, not outside, but inside the case, written presumably by the doll, that would say Pupa hate. And the way the handwriting was done, it was done in a childlike manner. So again, this particular handwriting was done inside the case after it was steamed up. Wow, when I read that, I realized how freaky is that. The idea that some inanimate object is having so much fury that it steams up the entire case, and then on top of that, it writes on it and it tells you blatantly something to your face, how it feels. That's a big nope. That's the time when, again, you're done and you get rid of this doll in some way whatsoever. But apparently that family decided to keep it nonetheless on there. They would also say that within the display case, that glass case that's again there, they would place the doll in a certain manner, maybe legs crossed in a certain way or body placed in a certain position, and then when they would come back, they would find that the doll was in a different manner, either laying in a different manner or legs crossed in a different manner, again bearing far too close of a similarity to Robert the doll and what I had mentioned in some of his examples on there. Also, people that would that would come by the glass case and pass it, say that whenever they would do so, they would hear a tapping from inside that glass case every time they walked by. And when they turned to look and see what was happening, in some cases they would see the doll just as is, as left before, which would make it so mysterious. How do you hear somebody tapping on there if you don't see it? And in other cases, in a far more freaky circumstances, they could see her hand actually pressed up against the glass after, as if she had just finished tapping on it and wanted you to know that it was her on there doing it. Again, how freaky is that? That's the kind of thing, again, where you would just say, that's it, I quit. The doll is gone. I don't care what it takes on there. But they still kept it. One of the family members finally wanted to be able to capture video footage associated with this doll and what she was doing, and so they set up a video camera, and apparently they did catch footage. They caught footage of the doll doing stuff that I was just describing. However, whenever they tried to upload it onto YouTube, and the stories go that it was specifically on YouTube, this YouTube, the very same one you're watching now, whenever this was happening, every time this family member tried to upload it, there would be a quote-unquote mysterious thick white film that would appear on the video instead. So whatever was recorded was gone, and instead it would be a thick white film with the words "Pupa no" and big exclamation points scribbled on that film. And this happened no matter how many times this person captured the footage and tried to upload it. There would be that particular white display that would come up on the footage with, again, the same childlike handwriting that was inside the glass case, this time on that footage saying Pupa no on there. And this is because, again, apparently Pupa the doll does not like being, after having so many decades of freedom, being in a glass case, and especially somebody recording her in something like this. Apparently the tales are that she feels trapped, that she feels betrayed, that, again, she is not happy with her circumstances, and all of this has led to the doll taking out her anger on the family on there. And I've saved the best for last. Apparently the most haunting thing associated with this doll, and I'll bring another picture of it here specifically with what I'm talking about, are the doll's eyes. Those eyes, people have said, follow you. If you come across the room, if you go from left to right, those eyes, they're set in a position where it looks like they're constantly following you. There's a term for that, though, and I forget what it's called, but it's associated with paintings out there, where the most famous example is Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. If you have a set of eyes done in a certain manner, it doesn't matter where you are, those eyes will look like they're looking at you. And you could move slow, you could move fast, you can move left and right, up or down, but those eyes would always seem to follow you. So that actually may apply to this doll. Again, the way the doll was made and the way the eyes were made, it could apply to that, and it could be just a coincidence, or it could be that the doll is physically moving its eyes at the same time in a weird, paranormal, supernatural, freaky way as well. So it's up to you to decide, is this that particular term? It escapes my mind, I can't think of it on there, or is it that the doll is truly alive on there? So again, freaky stuff. Now the whereabouts of this doll, interestingly enough, is nobody knows. So the family got rid of it, but nobody knows where it's at now. It could be in a garbage bin somewhere. It could be in another glass display in some unknown house. It could be, who knows, right next door to you. With regards to this doll, apparently the location for it is kept hidden. However, this family got rid of the doll, or if they kept it after all, they do not want anyone else to know where it's at, and so no investigations, no research that I could find shows the current whereabouts of the doll. It's not like Robert the doll, who's probably displayed in a museum for everybody to come by and see, but it is still out there, because in doing my research I came across several websites where people have investigated the doll itself. So the whereabouts of the doll are there. I mean, the doll is existing. It's somewhere right now, at least enough so that people could come over, those that are into this type of thing, and investigate it. But with regards to that whereabouts, they're kept pretty hidden for right now. So what do you guys think? Pupa the doll. Again, another entry into my urban legend, specifically the Haunted Doll series on there. Again, I won't do these for a while because this stuff is freaky stuff. I don't want to get too involved in that world. It's almost into that paranormal type world that I keep mentioning that I don't want to go into on that part, but did it again as a favor to everybody out there for your continued support and for your warm reception for the Robert the Doll. So alright, as always, thanks again everybody. Take care. Bye.